All right, it's a slow few minutes at the grocery store, so I wanted to take a few minutes to show you some examples of ways that you can support small businesses, even at major grocery stores, instead of supporting the big five corporations that own literally 80% of America at this point and 90% of the brands in your grocery store. We recently did a video on Milk Bar and telling the difference between Milk Bar genuine small business and the Milk Bar they had licensed to General Mills. So I talked to you about some of the other alternatives that I would rather eat instead of something that has been licensed to General Mills. When you're looking at the grocery store in these sections, you can see some giveaways. For instance, if you see the local tag in your grocery stores, if your grocery store has them, this can be really, really helpful, right? You can also see items that are minority owned, women owned. I'll tell you right now that anytime you're going to see a company that is very well recognized like Pillsbury, you know that that's going to be a major corporation. However, this might confuse you because Mrs. Fields is supposed to be a small business franchise. Well, if you have watched any of my videos on cookies, you know that this small business franchise sold out to private equity in 2013 and is not a small business at all. Buying this product is not only helping private equity, it is hurting the small business franchisees that are left trying to fend for themselves against that mega corporation. That said, Sweet Loren's is absolutely a small business that uses all clean ingredients. They don't believe in using extra preservatives, dyes, any of the foods on the back that you absolutely cannot pronounce. As a matter of fact, if you look at these ingredients, you can pronounce every single one because it's all natural, clean ingredients. The same is true over here, where you're going to see something like Cheesecake Factory, you're going to see something like Nabisco, and you know that those are Megacorp's, Jell-O Megacorp. However, you can buy Sweet Loren's right here, right, in edible cookie dough, and you can buy Don't Forget Cake, which is a minority-owned local regional business here in the DCMDVA that has exceptional desserts. They have cakes, they have cookie doughs, and they have some other items that you can grab. Cozy Shack is an item that really breaks my heart because it was founded by somebody just trying to live his American dream, and he really did that, made it into a household name and kept it family owned. But then in 2012, it was bought by Land O'Lakes, the largest dairy holdings company in the United States. And for the record, I visited Land O'Lakes Dairies in Corona, California, and I was left lacking in enthusiasm. So again, these are those opportunities to make a better choice. The refrigerated soup section is a place where you're going to see Panera and you're going to see Campbell's and you're going to see major brands over and over and over again. But if you're lucky enough to be in the Mid-Atlantic or on the East Coast, you might also see Ben's Chili Bowl, which is produced and distributed out of DC by a family that has owned their business for something like 70 odd years. And they use household ingredients. They don't have anything in their ingredient list you can't pronounce, and it's 100% produced and distributed by the family. So we love Ben's Chili Bowl. And they don't just sell chili, they also sell sausages and they sell hot dogs. Another fun stop can be in the pickle section and the bread section because there are tons of brands like Clausen's that are Megacorp owned. There are also some really good options that are not. For instance, I really love Grillo's, which was a family-owned brand, and they sold out. And at first I was worried they sold to private equity, but they didn't sell to private equity. They sold to King's Hawaiian. A lot of people might see King's Hawaiian rolls and assume that's Megacorp owned, but it's not. It's still family-owned and operated today. So King's Hawaiian is not going to be backed by private equity, not going to be backed by one of the Megacorps. And Grillo's Pickles is also not going to be. Cleveland Kitchen is another one of those great brands that is family owned and operated based out of Ohio, and they are now selling kimchi, sauerkrauts, pickles. They have a whole bunch of different product lines, and they're still family owned and operated, and you can get them nationwide in almost every grocery store. And it would be really hard to visit a pickle section or a sauerkraut section without featuring a product that is Jewish owned and operated by a family. That's Batamte. And Batamte, their pickles are spectacular. First of all, super sour, super dilly. But my mother-in-law loves their kraut. And it is Yom Kippur, so what better time to feature a product like that? When it comes to coffee, it's going to get a lot harder to find items that are, one, not Megacorp owned, two, financially accessible for most, and three, not hidden behind a bunch of shell corporations. And I'm going to be honest, the coffee companies are being acquired and traded like Pokemon cards most days of the week. But I do want to give you a little bit of my insight. So first of all, anything with Keurig or Green Mountain on it are owned by JAB Holdings, which, as I have stated in prior videos, is a company that was founded by members of the Nazi Party and built their entire net worth on concentration camp and prisoner of war labor. So those are going to be an absolute no for me, especially because their idea of making atonement is by donating $10 million, which represents 0.00023% of their value. And that doesn't do it for me. Next, I'm going to say that you're going to see a whole bunch of brands you will recognize because they have franchises or locations all around you. Dunkin' Brands is owned by Roark, which we've talked about being a company that really perpetuates acquisition and purchasing of companies that otherwise would be competitors, and then, in my opinion, using them for price fixing. Of course, that's my opinion. Peet's Coffee is the same. Kauai Coffee used to be a financially affordable coffee, and still is, that was independently owned on the Hawaiian Islands by a Hawaiian family. However, it was recently acquired by Zanetti. Now, Zanetti is still a privately held corporation. They have not sold out to private equity, and they're not traded on the stock market. So technically, it's still privately held. It's just not held by the founders. I will say that Newman's Own is always a good choice because they donate 100% of every dollar they make in every product they sell back to help children and charities all across the United States and the world. So Newman's Own is always a good choice. If you're lucky enough to have a store that identifies local brands for you, that can always be a really good choice because you can buy something that's locally produced and keep the money in your own economy and community. Black Rifle Coffee Company is something that you can access all across the United States. It's owned by a former Green Beret and it's still privately held. It can be a little pricey though. And so if you're looking for affordable options, Newman's Own tends to be one of the best bets, and so does Kauai Coffee, which can be a great choice. And I just want to show you that Kauai Coffee also offers pods, and so does Newman's Own. The chips and snack foods aisle is another one of those places where it can be hard to find something that's not owned by a mega corporation or a private equity firm. However, there are big exceptions to that rule, including some of my favorite brands. Some of these brands were originally small business brands that were acquired by mega firms that kept the small business name to fool you. For instance, Dot's Pretzels, not so small anymore. These guys are owned by Hershey's. There was a time where Cape Cod Chips and Snyder's Pretzels were both small businesses, but they've been bought by the Campbell's Soup Corporation. However, there are exceptions. For instance, Xochitl, you can get nationwide now, is 100% minority owned and operated. All of their employees, all of their owners, and it is privately held. If you're anywhere on the East Coast, you know Utz Chips. Now, Utz is still primarily owned in a majority stake by the founders, the Utz family. It's the Rice and Lizette family. They merged with another company that is also family owned, and they started trading a minority stake on the stock market, which still gives public accountability, so I always like that. And while I can't find them in this store because they're pretty exclusive to one another, if you buy hers, you are buying from a family that is not only family owned and operated out of Pennsylvania, but also has an employee profit sharing model where the employees each own a stake in the company as well. The reality is that anything you buy that is ready-made to serve is going to be higher risk of being major corp owned or private equity acquired. Kevin's Natural used to be one of my favorites, and Kevin's was acquired by Mars. And since then they've increased their distribution, which is great for the company, but not great for the quality of the product. You can have a really hard time in the breakfast foods aisle, but you can also find small brands like Maple Grove Farms. That was originally a horse and dairy farm that is still family owned and operated out of Vermont. You can struggle to find things in the dried produce and packed produce section as well, unless you can find a small co-op shop or something like that. This is one that's readily available in most stores. It's called Picker Fresh, and this is family owned and operated and employs 250 people between America and Turkey, where they bring in Mediterranean foods. And when you're in the ice cream section, it can feel overwhelming and almost impossible. My go-to is always Tillamook, which is a dairy cooperative owned and operated by the farmers, for the farmers, with a profit-sharing model. And if you're feeling very, very, very fancy and you're looking for gourmet ice cream, Jenny's Splendid is still owned by Jenny. She's still the head of the company, and it's based out of Ohio. And my favorite is always their peach jam and biscuits. I love that one. And the darkest chocolate. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and we work together to fight private equity and save small businesses in our community. Don't forget to like, comment, follow, and repost.